We will have a time of question and answers, and I'd like to invite if anybody has a question to come up, and I just would ask that you keep it, maybe one sentence, that you come up if you have a question, if you have a burning question to ask Marianne, and if you would raise your hand. Yes, please, come on up. And just hold this close and go this way. Camera.
Marianne, did you expect to win the presidency?
No, I didn't expect to win the presidency, but this is what I not only hoped would happen, but knew then and know now could have happened and would have happened had certain circumstances been different. In 2020, when I ran, I had the opportunity for a CNN town hall, 2 debates, and what I felt for a minor candidate were my legal and ethical due, being on MSNBC and CNN. As a consequence, I had an opportunity to speak about children the way I feel needs to be in the conversation, to speak about peace in a way that I feel needs to be about in the conversation, to speak about racial inequality and reparations in a way I feel needs to be in the conversation. So I felt that I was given the opportunity, as I said, my legal and ethical due, to give a message that I felt open to a greater possibility. That's all that you wish for in a campaign. Broaden the conversation, and there's no platform like a presidential campaign to allow you to do that. In 2024, I naively assumed that I would be given the same opportunity. I felt very strongly that President Biden would not win. And I felt that not because of the president himself. So that's not where I was coming from. Where I was coming from was that in my career, I travel a lot. I was as horrified as everybody else I knew when Trump won in 2016, but I was not shocked like everybody else I knew. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were the only two people in that primary season who told the American people that their pain and their rage was legitimate and valid. And only one of them, of course, meant it. In 24, I knew that there was too much concentration on hating Trump. I didn't understand how anybody thought we were going to win just by saying how bad Trump is. People knew who Trump was. He'd already been president. But we were not offering enough of a compelling alternative. We were not offering people this, what your health care will be, universal health care, tuition-free college and tech school. I traveled this country. When my career began, and I was very much active in the AIDS crisis. When my career began, I have had the privilege, starting with the AIDS crisis, I have had the privilege of being up close and personal with people in the times of pain. But in the early 1980s, and through really about the mid 90s, the people I met in my career who were deeply in trouble, the trouble was the exception and not the rule. I started to see something change in the late 90s. It was already mentioned that I was the minister at a Unity church, large Unity church in Warren, Michigan. I met people everywhere I went for whom the crisis was the rule and not the exception. The problem wasn't just that people had cancer. The problem was that they didn't have health care. The problem wasn't just that people didn't have a job. It's that they couldn't support a family on one job alone. So I knew that the Democratic Party should be speaking in a very deep way to that pain. And people, as a friend of mine said, will go with false hope before they'll go with no hope. And I knew too many people whose lives were basically okay, who were just spouting this ridiculousness about how, no, the economy is doing really well. Well, the number of people for whom the economy was doing well was not enough people to win this election. I have experienced the anger out there, the rage out there, the depression out there. So I wanted to talk about how we needed to provide more universal health care, tuition-free college. Now, when you ask me, did I expect to win? This is not only well, first of all, I went in naively, expecting that I would be given the same opportunities I had been given in 20 to give my message. Unbeknownst to me, from the moment I announced, forces that be were like, we have decided it's Biden. That's not how it's supposed to work in a democracy, by the way. The whole point of a primary is that different people give different ideas. So the Republicans were having debates, the Republicans were having CNN town halls, all the oxygen was going to them. And I could not believe how many traditional Democratic voters were falling for this, really, to be honest, cult-like thinking of the like 5 people. If you only knew, like 5 people who decided, no, we're not going to have a primary. We're all just going to line up and go with Biden. And the level of viciousness and infiltration that the FBI warned me about, by which I was peripheralized, smeared, character assassinated, minimized. It was quite an experience of ego burn to go through. You can only imagine. My point is, if that had not occurred, I was already getting up there to, like, I remember when I was about 13%, Nikki Haley was there. CNN town halls were being given to people who had far less polling numbers than I did. Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie. No, there was a political media industrial complex. CNN went along with it. MSNBC went along with it. No, there's no opponent for Biden. It's just Biden. It's just Biden. This is what I believe. If democracy had been allowed to occur and my people who heard me, the numbers would have been going up. You know what would have happened? Other Democrats, senators, congressmen, other Democrats would have gone, well, hell, she can do it. And she's getting rising numbers. Let's open this thing up. That's what I expected. I expected that the voice, the message I was giving was one that was so compelling. Because remember, in that almost 500,000 votes I got, given how suppressed my candidacy was, that means basically everybody who heard me basically voted for me. That's what I expected. I expected to be given the same opportunity as I had been to get a message out, which I do believe would have blown this whole thing up, would have, a real robust primary would have occurred. Do I think after that I would have elected president? Probably not. But would I have, I think, performed a function that would have and could have opened this thing up so that Donald Trump would not have been president again? Yes. And I hope that everybody who bought the silliness, like, oh, we don't primary, anybody our age who would be buying that stuff about a we don't primary uh, uh, incumbents. What do you think Eugene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy Sr. did to Lyndon Johnson, which is why Lyndon Johnson dropped out? So I hope that answers your question. I hope all of us learned some things. I know I learned some things. I hope all of us did, because in the future, each and every one of us have got to stop farming out our thinking to an elite with any political party or any media source or any political source. Let's remember what Thomas Jefferson said. The only safe repository for power is in the hands of the people, and that means you and me. That was kind of a long
Thank
answer.
you.
Thank you.
Back here. So I guess the question I have is what that I never thought I would see in this country, where it seemed like the people at the top of the income ladder, the very elite rich, seem to care so little about the rest of us. And is there no conscience in this group of people? It seems like in the past, at least, you had some sense of, if you were extremely wealthy, that you would give back to the community in some way. And yet it doesn't seem to be happening today, or we're not hearing about it.
Yeah, when you and I were growing up, Kathy, am I supposed to be answering that now?
Thank you.
When you
Yes,
and I
please
were
do.
growing up, when you and I were growing up, there was the concept of noblesse oblige, the idea that the more you have, the more responsibility you have to others. As I mentioned earlier, there's been such a moral hollowing out of American capitalism. Its greed has been so normalized and even affirmed. Remember Ivan Boesky in the 1980s, I think greed is good. Um, I'm in Paris right now for the weekend. I'm spending as much time as I can in London because I have little grandbabies there. But I'm in Paris right now. And yesterday I went to the Fontainebleau Palace. And being in Paris, it's so unbelievably gorgeous. But if you think about it, even for 5 minutes, that gorgeousness was due to the fact that there was such incredible wealth in the hands of a few people at the expense of everybody else who lived basically like serfs. And that reality, generation after generation, century after century, led ultimately to the grotesque horrors of the French Revolution. Something very, very beautiful on the external planes led to something very, very, very ugly. When I was at Fontainebleau the other day, and it was so magnificent, but I thought to myself, anybody living within this would be completely buffered from an awareness of what the everyday person out there was going through. Because these people living in these extraordinary, grandiose palaces were surrounded by millions of people who couldn't even get enough bread to feed their children. And I think that one of the problems, and I'm not someone who thinks that all billionaires are bad. I think someone like uh, Oprah Winfrey has, I believe, righteously made her money. So I don't, I'm not into some knee-jerk damning of all rich people. I think there is such a thing as righteous wealth creation. But clearly, we have developed a system in which it's far, far too easy for some people to become billionaires and far, far too difficult for the majority of people to even get a shot at making a decent living in this country. And it's only getting worse, and AI will only make it worse. I think that something, I was thinking of Jeff Bezos while I sat in that chapel at Fontainebleau, thinking these people are buffered. They are buffered. You know, I said to a friend of mine, uh, he became a billionaire. This was years ago, decades ago. And I said to him one day, you know, I think something happens to you guys at about 750 million. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I think there's a point up to which you guys realize the laws of civilization apply to you as well. But there's something that happens at some point where you flip over into some place like the laws of civilization like don't apply to you. And you know what he responded? He went like this. I think that's about the number. So, too much policy is being made. We know that the undue influence of money on our political system is the cancer underlying all the other cancers. And you have basically an oligarchy in this country. You have a relatively small group of people whose billions of dollars and corporate power um, make it very, very difficult for the voice of the average person to be in charge. Um, it's not a covert matrix, it's very overt. When you have a $1.5 trillion military budget coming up, defense contractors, military industrial tech, they now call it military industrial tech complex, big ag, big oil, big food, um, real estate, the international lobbies, APAC, but many others as well. And of course, Donald Trump is their guy. We all know this. But, you know, I said when I was running for president, which is part of why I wasn't appreciated, I said, and I believe it was true, that the Republican Party represented a nosedive and the Democratic Party represented a managed decline. It's not like if Kamala Harris were president, that everything would be great. We would still be dealing with the underlying tensions of basic inequality that it would be reasonable to consider would blow at some point. You know, and this is what's important about what you asked. The problem isn't them. The problem was us. We went along and we had the idea that, you know, if you just vote Democrats and, you know, it'll be okay. Well, it was better. But the incremental changes being represented by the Democratic Party over the last few decades, I'm sorry, was not enough. So yeah, they are the thieves of our democracy, but the Democratic Party in many ways opened the windows and opened the doors. And too many Democratic voters did not hold the Democratic Party accountable, which is interesting because Republican voters are more willing to hold accountable their Republican leaders. It's very ironic to me. But you know what? At this point, please don't get me wrong with anything I'm saying. I can't tell you how important it is, I believe, that the Democrats win the House and the Democrats win the Senate and the Democrats win the presidency in 2028.
Okay, one more question. Thank you, Marianne. One more question. Would you like, sorry, Diane. I'm realizing we would really love to have you back, Marianne, and especially in person.
Thank you, Marianne. I really appreciate your social media posts. If it wasn't
Thank you.
Trump, it would have been someone else. So I am grieved and horrified by what Trump and the regime is doing to people all around the world and our own population, especially the immigrants and the detention centers. How do you choose love over fear and anger and still look it in the face and know it, but yet choose love and over fear?
Well, moral outrage is not born of anger. Moral outrage is born of love. This we have adopted in the society, and I think that the higher consciousness community has been part of this. This cheap yellow smiley face, love, 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 love. Sometimes love says no. Sometimes love says no. If you have a child come into the kitchen, a 2-year-old with the scissors, you want to get that scissors out of the hands of that child. Everybody talks about boundaries. Well, you have a boundary. This idea that love always looks nice, nice, is no, the answer is no. I don't have a problem realizing that Donald Trump is an innocent child of God. I don't have a problem with that, actually. I have a problem sometimes on the Stephen, I think my own personal process, I have a little harder time with Stephen Miller because I haven't worked at it as long. But conceptually, the idea that there are people who are behaving the way they're behaving, I understand. The Course in Miracles says the ego is suspicious at best and vicious at vicious at worst. It is our job. My mother used to say that a woman's main job is to take care of her home and take care of her children. And I remember thinking my mother was kind of retro, and I didn't agree with that. And the older I got, the more I knew that archetypally and energetically she was correct. It's just that today, taking care of the children needs to be every woman's child, every mother's child. And taking care of our home means more than anything, our shared home, which is the earth itself. There's nothing loving about the fact that we have allowed what's going on to happen. There's nothing loving about allowing the insanity of our various military misadventures to continue. There's nothing loving about that. There's nothing loving about that. Now, you look at something like Gaza, you look at something like the Palestinians and the Israelis. The Course in Miracles says, God does not give you victory in battle. He lifts you above the battlefield. Rumi said that there, out beyond all ideas of good and bad, right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And what has become so impactful for me over the last few years is realizing that field, beyond all ideas of good and bad, right or wrong, is the only place where we can meet. But that can't just be that you and I are being nice to each other. That means you're involved in, could be organizations of Arabs talking to Jews, Israelis, and Palestinians, and so forth. That you actually take part in providing the alternative. That's what the Course in Miracles says. Donald Trump is a symptom. Anytime you have large groups of desperate people, then that large group of desperate people becomes a petri dish. Look, that's what happened in the French Revolution. That's what happened with the rise of Hitler. And that's what's happening in America today. Too many suffering people. And that becomes a petri dish out of which all manner of personal and societal dysfunction becomes almost inevitable. And that includes attraction to a political strongman, and it includes ideological capture by genuinely psychotic people. We have allowed this to fester. He's just a symptom. Monsters come out of that petri dish, even with Palestinians. You know, I think a lot of people don't realize the history, and we should all revisit it. Jimmy Carter tried. Bill Clinton tried. And then George Bush came in with those neocon hawks, and their policy was any friend of Israel was a friend of ours, any enemy of Israel was an enemy of ours. But Barack Obama came in after that, and Barack Obama could have changed that. And Barack Obama could have said to Bibi Netanyahu, no, no more settlements, no. He could have, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody needs to get over this romanticization of this. But he, as in so many issues, knew what was true, but would not spend political capital. So America allowed this to fester with our own policies. So I think when we realize that Trump is just the darkness that came out of the fact that we were not standing for enough light. You know, Martin Luther King said there's negative peace and positive peace. Negative peace is where there's no outright war or violence, but there's an underlying tension and anxiety. He said positive peace is where is the predicated on the presence of justice and brotherhood. So anything that any one of us fail to do in the presence of the injustice and the pain and the suffering on the other side of town, not just the other side of the world, but in many of our neighborhoods and communities, even here in the United States, on the other side of town. If we were silent, if we were complacent, you know, when hate is talking so loud, love cannot afford to whisper. But I think the point is, you wake up in the morning, you pray, you meditate. And I know anybody in this room who has children, anybody who's been around children, particularly teenagers, there's this thing that happens when you have teenagers around. And this fierce thing rises in you. Usually it's about drugs, sex, or alcohol. And you sense some danger that could be upon them. And this fierce thing happens to you. And you're like, that will not be happening in this house. And that's how we have to become about certain things. That will not be happening in this house. Love you. I can love you, Donald Trump. I can love you, Stephen Miller. I can love you, J.D. Vance, but that will not be happening in this house. My own father fought in World War II. The people who died in the Civil War, the people who died in World War II. Let's not be the first generation of Americans to wimp out on taking this country back to where we need to be. We've gone off course enough times. I mentioned that. It's not like this is new, that America went off the rails. But in the past, we have course corrected, and you and I must course correct now. And I understand it's tough. I understand, as a matter of fact, that on the material plane, man, they have us checkmated. He has purged the government of the people that would hold him accountable. He has nullified the voice of Congress. He is trying now, even now, to rig this midterm. But let's not forget the heroes in our midst as well. And I'll bet some of them are in this room. Some of them are definitely in your state. Let's not forget those brave judges making decisions right now that they know are at great risk to do so. The people in Minneapolis, the people who stood up in Portland, I'm sorry, there's a great awakening going on in this country right now. I think a lot of people are realizing that we do care about democracy, and we were asleep and we were complacent. We just need to atone. We all have to not only atone for our country, but atone for any way that we just bought into sloganeering that was not enough to get the job done. And this is a time for all of us, you know, whether it's in your individual life or your collective life. When life goes wrong, you got to look in the mirror and go deep. And the Course in Miracles says it's not up to you what you learn. It's merely up to you whether you learn through joy or through pain. Well, we're learning through pain. But if enough of us learn, we have in front of us in these next few months before November, This is one of the most pivotal moments in American history. And the world is disgusted with us right now. But even the people who have just had it with us and all that know that this world will not be a better place if America goes down. Now, America is going down. We are in decline right now. The question is this or is this not a reversible decline? We must not acquiesce to the thought that this is irreversible because we must believe in miracles. And we know that in God, all things are possible. We know that where love is existing, miracles occur naturally. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. It's not about just people say, we got to love Donald Trump. We have to love those people at Delaney concentration camp in New Jersey. We have to love those people at Dilley in Texas. We have to love those people in Alligator Alcatraz. Why is it always rising to loving him? Yeah, what about loving the victims of this insane modern barbarism? Martin Luther King said, God said I have to love my enemies. He didn't say I have to like them. God bless him. May he retire. But we got to love those people. We got to love our children. We got to love our children's children. We got to love this earth. And we can't be quiet about it any longer. And if we do that, and if we truly are on fire with the realization that we can every morning of our lives say to God, use me. That's my favorite gospel song. Use me. Use me. Use my hands. Use my feet. Use my brain. You know, James Doty, that wonderful book, the late James Doty, the doctor at Stanford who wrote that book called Into the Magic Shop, which was so fabulous. He said they used to think the brain was the intelligence center of the body. But they now know that there's a highway of sorts between the brain and the heart. And that partnership is the intelligence center of the body. And not only is it the intelligence center of the body, clearly it's the intelligence center of civilization. Martin Luther King said, power without love is reckless and abusive. And that describes some of the power of the United States government over the last 50 years, particularly. But love without power is anemic and weak, which describes too much of our own communities over the last 50 years. We need to have love that owns power. We need to have power that owns love, and we need to be at it. And I understand, none of us are stupid here. We're on life support, this democracy of ours, but it's not dead yet. And I believe that each and every one of us are filled with, the Course in Miracles says, the people on this earth who've achieved the most have achieved a fraction of what each of us are capable of. So we've got to stop coddling our wounds. We've gone too far with that. I've written books about it too, but enough. And give yourself an hour a day to cry if you have to, and then get up. And I've learned in my own life, so then get up, take a shower, get out there. Your country needs you, your world needs you, your descendants need you. And I've learned in my own life, 90% of the time when I have a problem, you know what the best advice I end up giving myself? Oh, get over yourself. This is not about you. This is about us. This is about the ages. This is about something extremely important. And let's all hold hands. One other thing I'll say before I would like to end with a prayer, if that's okay, if you don't have any other questions for me. Every
Yes,
time I
please.
see something that is disturbing me in this country or in this world, I think of myself as, I'll remind myself, Marianne, you're not the only person upset by this. Millions of other people are upset by this too. And you're tied as by a silver filament, tiny silver filament. The Course in Miracles calls it your mighty companions. And the Course in Miracles says you will be drawn to those mighty companions. And the Course says an idea grows stronger when it is shared. Any post, any conversation, any class that you do that delivers you. I hope you go to marianne.com. I have a lot of stuff on there that might be of service to you. Anything that either increases the purification of our hearts or the quality of our activism, you put those two together, it's a holistic response to this moment, an integrative response. It's body, mind, spirit. I'm going to be doing a book club this week. If you go to my Substack on politics and spirituality. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to understand, a lot of history to revisit. And the miracles are happening now. And let's just be very deeply intentional that on our watch, nothing less is going to happen. And let's share that book.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And do you
Can,
want to you want to share a
can-
prayer?
Yes, may I? Thank you. Dear God, thank you for bringing all of us together for this conversation. We call to mind our dearly beloved Jean Houston. Jean, we assume you're here. Thank you for all that you have given us, that you have taught us. May we be worthy of the guidance and illumination you have given us. May our personalities be worthy as our souls already are. And dear God, we surrender to you on this day all that we have and all that we are. Lead us. Who would you have us be? What would you have us do? Deepen our grounding in the love and the truth and the compassion for all sentient beings. We know that none of us get a pass on addressing that suffering. And we know that you have mighty work to do through each and every one of us. Whether it's caressing a child, understanding a friend or loved one, sharing wisdom, sharing guidance, sharing hope, sharing courage. We are willing. We atone for our mistakes. We pray for the atonement of our country. Any ways that we have been complacent, that we have been in denial, that we have sat things out, that we have judged, that we have surrendered our own best thinking. We all atone for our own personal errors. And we pray that at this time we emerge as better people. Let us learn from our failures as well as our successes. Let us be better husbands, wives, lovers, friends, parents, siblings, grandparents, children. Let us be better citizens. Let us emerge into the greater light of our own self-actualized, enlightened self. May we be useful to the cause of love, dear God. We send our love to one another. We send our love to all the people around us. We send our love to all the people of this world. Dear God, please use us. And so it is. And now go forth in confidence and go forth in peace. For there are angels to your left and angels to your right. Angels in front of you and angels behind you. There are angels above you and angels below. If at any moment you feel fear, you feel lack of confidence or doubt, put out your hand as a young child would put out a hand looking for the support of an elder brother. He will take your hand. He will walk you across those rocky places. This is no idle fantasy. He is here. Thank you, God. And so it is. We all
So
say,
it is.
amen.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be with you. Thank you,
It's
everybody.
wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.